we're live. So click the leave button.
Yeah.
So welcome everyone to the recording.
Well, we should start with the news.
Any news from today that we should talk about?
Yeah, I was seriously thinking of changing the name of the meetup or the title of the meetup today.
I haven't seen the news. Can you all share?
Oh, yes. Juxt renamed. I mean, not Juxt is still the same name. Crux is now called XTDB, right?
Oh.
There, Stephen.
Oh.
Yep, that's it's funny. It's funny that you said you considered renaming the meetup, because that's essentially been the 2 weeks on the team is kind of running around scrambling, renaming Git repositories and like setting up crazy alternative branches and things like that. So it would have been very familiar if you had. Yeah, so this is actually I don't think it's any secret that it was actually a trademark dispute that caused us to rename the database, and so we were looking for something that was a little bit catchy and also quite unique. So at least now, if you search Stack Overflow for XTDB, you get 0 results, which is better than other Crux things. So hopefully that's helpful for people. There's very, very little that's changed otherwise. So the API has changed ever so slightly. We tried not to, there was a real temptation to run around cleaning up things that that we didn't like while we were in the midst of the rename, and we managed to mostly prevent ourselves from doing that. So there is one functional or like one significant name change, which is actually the ingest client. If anyone happens to use that, I kind of doubt anyone does. But that's in the release notes. And otherwise, you'll now see that things like crux.db/id are now a much simpler :xt/db/id. So the keyword names are all in the release notes, or the keyword changes for the names. And all the artifacts and everything have also changed their names. So the jars will now be like XTDB-core, XTDB-corda. If that one's released yet, it may not be, but all the different components will be XTDB something. And otherwise, things are reasonably symmetrical with Crux. So in your code base, you can largely search and replace Crux with XTDB, and things should still be working. And just to allay any fears, if you have Crux in production, like all your existing transaction log and everything like that is backwards compatible. So you will have like documents that have crux.db/id as the primary key, or like the singular unique key. Those still work and will continue to work indefinitely. So there shouldn't be anything that causes anybody any stress. There wasn't there have been times in the past where we've actually changed the transaction log. We didn't do that with this change. We considered doing it where we were like, oh, okay, you migrate your transaction log forward, but we didn't. We decided against doing that just to make things simpler for users. So there's no transaction log migration. Essentially, it's just a quick like API search and replace, and you should be good to go. But part of the reason that I'm here is just to make sure that the artifacts are easy to find and the documents are easy to find, and that if you're, looking through something and there's a dead link or something like that, that I can vote. So hopefully that's not the case, but yeah, all the old stuff, the old website and the old tutorials and all of that sort of thing with the name Crux is still around and will be briefly in case you want to go back to it. But largely, we'll just try to move everything over as quickly as possible and as thoroughly as possible. So we'll try not to like leave any debris littering the internet. We'll try to keep our redirects clean. So best of luck to us with that.
No, it seems to be a pretty good job so far from what I could see.
Oh, thanks.
Definitely.
Yeah, since the last meetup, I was using Crux, and now I'm going to spend hopefully not too long switching over to XTDB. But I just sort of for a project I'm working on, I don't think it's quite as appropriate as a database for what I'm using, but I thought I'd just use it as an excuse to learn.
Yeah, fair.
So,
That's really cool.
other news? There seems to be some work on tools build as normal, I think. What was the other things that I
do you have any highlights that you can think of? I mean, I've seen some announcements and stuff. I do know that Sean Corfield released a like build.clj, which was like a bunch of tasks that he extracted. So I've been meaning to check it out.
Yeah, I looked at it. I think that's a sort of good approach. The one thing that I'm not sure how easy or hard it is to do, but it would be real nice if we can, we as the whole community can sort of put together some sort of common, it's like common tasks, but which is what the build.clj is, but allow each individual user to sort of customize those as need, if they need it. So for the 90% of the tasks, maybe they're all the same, but for this thing, I want to do it differently. But maybe we need to get some experience with what variation there is before we can do that.
Yeah, see what level of abstraction makes sense, what level of composability we want.
Yeah. But I mean, tools.build in general has reasonably good composability if you adhere to that, map in, map out kind of
mode or
whatever. I don't know
style, convention.
Yeah. Convention, that's it. Yeah. Let's see if I can quickly find.
Cool. I've been. You got some.
No, go ahead. I'm just looking to see if there's anything else that I saw.
I put a link in. Borg Dude, he like kind of collected the last 2 months worth of, or several months worth of Webaska news and whatnot. And it was a really cool to read through. I put the link in the chat. Not only the releases and that kind of stuff, that was stuff that I had seen, but he's collected like, oh, this project uses it or that project uses it or whatever. And so it was really cool to read through and see what people are using Webaska for, or Webaska tasks, and kind of broaden my, like just be able to see what else is out there besides what I'm using.
Yeah. Let's see. The other thing that I thought was interesting was the sort of work that the work that's been done is being done, though not released yet, about the lightweight aliases. I'm sort of waiting.
Is that for keywords?
Yeah, for keywords, exactly. So
do you know exactly what that is? I'm not familiar with. I've heard the name, but that's all I've heard. I didn't really dig into what it actually is.
I think it's a different, slightly different syntax in the require state, require in the front, the NS form in the beginning of the and the require part of it.
So like right now, like if you want to use namespace keywords, you have to actually create a namespace.
Correct.
Post the keywords into. So the idea here is to not have to do that. So you can just kind of use this syntax to create like an alias without a namespace, essentially. So you can do namespace prefixes without actually having a namespace there necessarily.
Gotcha. Or having to just put the whole namespace in the key. You can have the : : like you can use the : without having to have it be a namespace.
Mm-hmm.
Is that part of it? I'm not sure if that. I'm not sure if that's part of the thing or not.
Yes, I think that is, well, but I think that is sort of exactly what you said. So I think.
Yeah. Just reflecting it.
Yeah.
Huh, interesting.
Yeah, that's not out yet, but that hopefully soon in 1.11.
Yeah, and there's also the functions for basically updating every value in a map without unpacking the map and repacking it.
Yeah. I could have used that this week. Had to roll my own.
The person who I got the idiom from for how to do that unpack and filter before this new function is Arna, who runs Lambda Island. And he actually released something that lets you do two things. One was like class path, like it watches your dep CDN and like adds new dependencies to your class path without returning the JVM, which feels like magic. And then the other one was he released like a Minecraft, like a Clojure Minecraft where it runs Clojure inside the Minecraft server so that you can REPL your Minecraft.
That's the crafting REPL.
Yes,
yeah.
REPL craft.
You can live code your Minecraft now.
Yes. Hey, Alec and Rohit.
Yes. Sorry, I'm late. To drop my son off. It took longer than I thought it would.
No worries. Good to see you.
Where are you guys located?
I am in the Bay Area.
Okay, and Alec? Oh, well.
He's text-based.
Oh, okay.
He's in LA.
Oh, he's in LA.
I assume you mean Los Angeles and not Louisiana.
Yeah, there's.
Disambiguate that keyword, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Well, it's good to have you guys. Any other Clojure news?
No, not really.
Oh, I saw Manifold got a new release. It was Zach Tellman. Manifold underpins Aleph, which is something I used Aleph at a previous job. And Aleph and Manifold, like that whole set of code was donated to CLJ Commons. So the first release of Manifold and CLJ Commons was recently. So, which is really cool because it's a very capable system, like set of libraries. So good to see it getting some attention.
Do you know if Aleph is being worked on?
I think so. I think they're probably going from the bottom up on the stack. They're probably working on to support libraries first.
Yeah, I used it through Yada, the Juxt.
Is that the router
library? It's yeah, it's a little. I think it's more than that. It was more like if I can describe it correctly, an API server, but that's pretty much declarative. So you just do it through data.
It's
cool.
kind of like Web Machine, right? Is that the name of the project? Or there's another project called Web Machine where you basically declare your whole API pointed to a function, etc.
I think so. That may be the next generation of it, I think, if I'm not mistaken. There is some, I can't remember the name of it, the next one. Anyway, it'll come to me. But it was a pretty good experience for me. I mean, I liked it a lot, except for the fact that at the time, at least probably now, there wasn't quite as much documentation as I was. So I had to do a lot of looking at the code to figure out what things were happening. But it was still good. I liked it. And there's, I forget the name of the person. Let me see if I can find it. But there's somebody who's writing a set of blog articles on configuration and stuff and how the things are conflated, like the configuration and the dependency injection. And they're conflicted.
Slipset.
Yes,
I don't know what his real name is.
Eric.
Eric.
Nassim, I think. Yes. So I have definitely faced that problem. So I'm sort of interested in seeing what he comes up with, if anything. So those were interesting as well.
Is there a new library, Rev? Do you have a link to that?
Which one? Sorry.
To the project you're talking about?
Right now? Oh, I think it's a couple of blog articles, but I'll see if I can find them. Yeah.
Cool. Well, in other news, I think it's
also mentioned in one of the derefs. If you look at that.
I put the first one in the chat. And I think it links to the second one.
All right.
I think Jux dropped the Clojure Tech Radar, a new Clojure Tech Radar since our last meeting.
That was, yes.
It's been a productive month.
Yeah, a lot of different things happening.
Put the radar in the chat. Mm-hmm. That was a good one to read, I think.
Yeah.
Anyone have any surprises or other takeaways from reading?
Well, I mean, since we're talking, this is about Crux. One of the things that when I was, trying out this project and using Crux with it, one thing, I mean, in retrospect, it's so kind of obvious, but the thing that I had a real problem with is I was trying to do a query where I wanted a distinct on two different fields. And I had posted that in the Crux mailing list, and somebody from Jax, I forget the name, Refset is his handle, I think. He said, he basically mentioned that the result of a Crux query is a set, so it's already distinct anyway, which was like a duh moment for me, but that
so
was interesting as well.
So core async is in hold now?
Where is core async?
Oh, yeah, that was a surprise to me too. And I think they were saying that it just can make a project complex, which I've found to be true.
Yeah.
Probably shouldn't say that C word, like that's not in their quote, in Clojure saying complex is. Yes.
The Clojure police have been dispatched to your house.
They're knocking on my door.
It's been really good knowing you. Okay. Yeah.
Oh, anyway. Maybe site, is that what you're talking about there? I just saw.
Oh, what was it?
Where you were. Yeah, yeah, that. Is that what you're talking about, Tyson?
Oh, me.
Web and API server powered by OpenCrux. Interesting.
No, this is new to me.
Okay.
I see we missed a rename.
If naming is hard, renaming is even harder.
Well,
Stephen, I do applaud your effort of like holding off on changing the other things that you wanted to change, because that's always so tempting and difficult.
Yeah, it was a lot of back and forth discussions over the past few weeks about which things we would change and which things we wouldn't, and sanity prevailed. I think we have James Henderson to thank. He's a pretty sane developer when it comes to doing things safely. So
very cool. All right. Anything else?
No, we can.
We open up the. Let me see. I opened up the new tutorial just now, so let's see how it goes.
The XT tutorial?
Yes. There you go. XT, look at this. I'm living in the future. XTDB. I always, kudos for like, I love shorter names with as long as they're not too short. So XT, I mean, you cut it in half. Like that's definitely quite amazing. So it's still recognizable. So kudos.
thanks. I lost out on getting all the namespaces just smooshed into a top level namespace of XT. Which is probably for the best.
Oh, you mean like,
so this is actually,
like, oh, wow.
Yeah, I mean, well, especially particularly for keywords, but so this is actually one thing that James has done quite intentionally that people should probably be aware of. This xtdb.ai as XT, for Clojure users at least, I mean, obviously for Java and Kotlin users, things are a bit different, but for Clojure users, because we have aliases, he's kind of pushing this as the standard. I mean, like he's creating a de facto standard if he can, to try to do this as regularly as possible. So most code bases are kind of expected to do this, and then you'll wind up with things like put, which used to be crux.tx/put.
Mm-hmm.
If you use this alias, then it becomes :xt/put. So you can use the full form. You can use xtdb.api/put, but that's a bit verbose. So he's hoping that people will use the : version everywhere. We'll see how that goes.
Interesting. I noticed that this was XT here.
Yeah, I did manage to win my top level XT for at least the database and for transaction functions. So transaction functions are also XTFN.
Gotcha, but not double colon, right?
Right. Hopefully,
we don't get the namespace in there.
Yeah. So this is if anyone is finding this confusing, like the various namespaces and things for the keywords, because we didn't actually change too much with the rename. If you do find that you're like, oh, :: and :XT are confusing, or like I don't like using aliases, which was one of my arguments, at least for data, feel free to shout at us, and like we can kind of tweak the keywords for the API in another upgrade where we're not also changing the name everywhere. So we can do things a little more incrementally and a little bit more safely, was kind of the thinking.
Cool. I'm just gonna put this in the chat so that I forgot to do that before everyone. So that's the next journal we're going through. So if you want to follow along. So where we left off last time was at rules at the bottom here. So yeah. I think we'll get back there. But you need to execute some of these cells at the top here to set up the environment. So I already ran this one, the require XT. No harm in running it again, I guess. Oh, there is harm in running it in the wrong tab though. There you go. I thought I ran it. I guess I didn't. I guess we're waiting for Clojure to start up. Oh, no, there it goes. Okay. And then we submit all the docs. So this is our big corpus of data that we're querying here. So it's all the movies, and then each the people in those movies, the directors, the actors, and what else? Oh yeah, if movies are sequels or whatever. So don't let these negative numbers throw you off. They're just unique IDs. So you can use anything for those, right, Stephen? It's just could be UID or a keyword or something else, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So, all right, well, so we're all set up there. We'll run this query and make sure that it works. There we go. All the movie titles, right? Yeah. And then this function here is to make querying more convenient. So just do Q. Like this. There we go. All right. Anybody have any questions so far? Anybody need a few seconds to like catch up? Yes. Did you hit the remix? There's like a remix button, I think, if you're logged in. And if there's no remix button, just execute one of the cells and it'll say like, hey, do you want to save this to your profile? Then that's where you get your own copy of it.
My first time really using Nextjournal. It's pretty cool.
It is.
Nate, do you remember like in this result here from the queue, it's a set of vectors.
Right.
Do you remember why I remember the set, but do you remember why the vector is there?
I think it's because of the shape of this. Stephen, can you? So why is it not just First Blood, Terminator 2, just the strings?
Yeah, it's just for data shape consistency. So because you're actually you're doing find over like an arbitrary number of attributes. So here you're finding like you're binding title, but you could be binding, 2 or 3 things. So rather than saying if I only have one thing, it doesn't show up in a vector, and if I have multiple things, then I throw them into a vector. It's always in a vector, even if it's just one attribute. So,
is there a way to sort of remove that, or is that something you have to do post the query result?
Yeah, usually, I mean, there are some like Datalog tricks, but mostly these sorts of things like unpacking the data and things like that, if you're expecting in situations where like you're only expecting one attribute, you generally do it after you get the query back. A lot of people do find, so this is like the standard query syntax. There is also a pull syntax that uses EQL. So a lot of people find if you're doing kind of, simple gets of your data out of the database, that the pull syntax is much simpler in terms of the results that you get back. So that might be something to take a look at.
Yeah, I also use the keys thing to get, like when there are multiple things rather than just one thing in the vector too. But that's where I also got, like I would get a set of a vector with only one map in it. But interesting. I think I get what you're saying. What you're saying is that in the title, there's only one. In this particular case, there's only title is the only one thing. So that's why there's only one thing. But if there was multiple things in there, that's where that the vector part would be useful.
Right. Yeah. It's just so that like the consuming code of any query doesn't have to make assumptions about what it's getting back. It always knows that like your the query vars are always bound into a vector regardless of how many there are.
What's the underscore for? I'm late to the party. So what's the underscore? Why does that exist? Is that convention? What else can go there?
I think it just means it's ignored. So
Yeah.
everything's entity attribute value. So the entity portion you don't care about. So you just put an underscore there to mark the place.
And
Right, but
essentially
why?
it's like wildcard. It's like matches everything, right?
I think it's more like it's just ignored, right?
Right. So when would you not ignore it? Like, is there what goes there?
You could put in a foo there, but you're never going to use that foo again. So the underscore just is a convention which just says that this is a variable here, but I'm ignoring. I'm not using that anywhere.
Yeah. So this is a case where you would want it.
Yeah. If you wanted it.
You want
So
ID.
is that like the ID? Okay. So if you don't want the
Yeah.
ID, okay, got it. Okay, I see. That is the ID.
And then if you go, oh, I missed the nice. You say like, so you say you want to get the director. I always forget the movie director. So you go foo movie director.
I think you need those brackets.
I do need brackets. Not those kind of brackets. I'll get there eventually. Give me a sec. There we go. And then foo movie director. Let's just make this so it makes more sense than foo. And then
find as well.
Oh yeah, good call. Movie. And then we want director, people,
Person name.
Person name, thanks. Oh man. And then name. So then you can say name like that. And you get the director of every movie with the movie title.
Yeah, it's been a while since I've used Datalog, but okay, I get it. I remember now.
Actually, this also gives us a good example of the two things in the vector.
Oh, Stephen just logged out. Thanks for stopping, Stephen. One thing I did, I put in the chat also the Clojure mode, which is like the key bindings that you get in this editor. So there's a little bit of like slurping and barfing and evaluate top level form, that kind of stuff. So if you're a connected editor junkie like me, there's some comfort. Okay. So has everyone at least evaluated and got things running, or that want to?
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. So last time we ended on aggregates, like sum and max. And I don't have the answers in here because this is the XDDB. This is finding the count of movies in the database. Just the count of all the movies. Oh, wow. So it's a vector with 20. So it still keeps that vector inside.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I found a little bit strange, but now I see what's.
Yeah, I guess you can. Yeah, that's interesting. Actually, can you do this kind of count query in Datomic, or is this?
Yeah, I believe you
I
can.
have no idea.
Okay, I haven't actually tried this.
Did you guys ever cover, what was the reason that the auto IDs, there are no auto IDs, right? You have to specify a DBID or XTID.
Yeah, I believe so, yes.
That is true. I don't remember why. We talked about it some in the first, so 2 meetups ago, about why well, about the fact that there's a difference. I don't know if we got into why there's a difference. I think a lot of people just end up using UUIDs for the IDs so that it's like they don't have to think about it, but are still able to specify it.
Got it. And then as far as referencing any kind of, there's no temp, I mean, since you're setting the ID, there's no concept of a temp ID, right?
Right, it's up to you to join things together to make sure that the data is here, like all these IDs and stuff. It's up to you to decide that. You can't just like refer to the other one.
Right. So do you know if there's a difference in the way, say, in Datomic, you can insert in a transaction, right? You have, a vector of datums essentially, right? Is there a difference in the way that we need to think about this being treated as a document, but the document is getting ripped apart and it's being stored as datums again, right? I mean, it's being stored as
tuples,
as tuples,
as EAV, yeah.
So like, is there a difference outside of obviously being schemaless in the way that we like transact data into like if you're transacting a document, can you then transact a different document that has a subset of that information, and it wipes away everything that was in that original entity if it's not included in the new update? Is that the difference? Whereas like if we have five fields in a document in Crux in XT DB versus if we're putting in a transaction with 5 tuples in Datomic, when we want to update just one thing, one field, we're gonna clobber. We're gonna, if we don't include all the original 5 fields in XTDB, we're gonna wipe those, right? They're going to be retracted.
I believe so. I believe it's on a document. I mean, the put transaction is is on a document basis, not on a tuple. It's not on the EAV basis.
Got it.
And it uses the what's it? XT/ID.
Right.
ID to update that document.
To update that, right. Okay.
There was a function you can call which basically says like, just give me this entity, use the whole document back. I thought it was entity.
Yes, it used to be, yeah.
Oh, I guess I have to pass
and then you
it.
need the node. You need the I don't think just the node. I think you got to say it used to be Crux DB/node. I mean, so, yeah, it's XT/DB by node. It's there in that cell below.
This one right here.
Yeah, that thing.
Thank you. So if we run this, we should get back. Yeah, James Cameron.
Yeah.
Okay, so now
is this a lazy sequence that's coming back?
No, I don't think this is lazy. But there is a call. There's a lazy call, but this is not lazy.
That's not it. So this is because I believe in DataScript, right? This entity comes back with a lazy sequence.
Okay.
And you can keep calling. Is that so? Is there something like that in XT?
There might be.
Not the expert, but I think that instead of this query, which was queue, there is a thing called open queue, if I'm remembering it correctly. open-q, which returns the same thing, but returns the lazy sequence.
I see.
And then you run a sequence iterator over it, I think, or iterator sequence. I can't remember now.
Trying to insert something. So I tried to insert this -1 with that James Cameron without the birth date.
Mm-hmm. And
and so we'll see if it wiped out the birth date in the. Yeah, it did.
Yep.
So there's no. I would assume that there is a. At least I think we talked about this before at one of the previous meetups, and we talked about that there was. I think there's either a compare and set, like so you can. Because obviously, if you read an entity out and you want to update it, there's a raise condition because someone else might have gotten in there in the middle, right? And so I think there might be either a compare and set or some way of doing it where you like maybe that's what transaction functions might help out with. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think that there's something. Yes, exactly. It's called match, I think. And you put that in a transaction with a match and a put. But I don't know if it's in. I don't think it's in this tutorial though.
There's no match in here.
Yeah.
Well, there's one match in here, but it's not helpful.
Yeah.
Here's what
solves this problem, but it basically allows you to set conditions under which the transaction will go through. Like there's enough balance in a bank account, right, to make a transfer or something.
Oh. Okay. Well, there's a hint. The other tutorial, the planets one, has match in it. So if we get to that, we can explore the match. Did that answer your questions there, or at least give you the right places to go look at them?
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. I think I remember this one, the third one, the find the average rating. I remember this was interesting because this is like adding together 2 or 3 of the sections before. Like this right here, this data it's like you're giving you're giving it a relation, but in this case between movie and rating that doesn't exist in the database. And you can use it right here and bind it and actually either match it up against stuff that's in the database or use it to calculate things. So you can like bring in data from the outside and use it in queries relatively seamlessly, I think is the way to go. So
yeah, sort of like a external data table in some sense. I mean, it's external to the database, but you're using it in the query.
Yeah, which I think is really cool because like one of the things that I remember about Datomic is you can like, if you have a reference to the database, you can say like, oh, and here apply some of these new transactions, but just in memory, and then query that. So like you can like, or you can use a database reference that you got an hour ago to like, as of that time, because it's just like it's like a handle. It's something you can keep a reference to. So the ability to like lay things on top of transactions on top of a database handle is cool. But this is like, I want to have new relations altogether and query them. Seems really cool. Like if you're pulling it from like a CSV or something, right?
I have a question for you guys. What do you know, one of the things I'm struggling with now with Datomic and with DataScript is, you know, when to use a query versus EQL. Do you have any sense? Is it kind of like split? Is it like let me give you an example. If I'm trying to do this slightly gnarly recursive query, it's much easier to do that, obviously, if I kind of just brute force my way through it using something like, the lazy entity call, right? I can just treat it like some structure that I can keep drilling into the keys on. But I'm sure that there's a performance hit. So, is it, I know there's no magic answer to this, but like, it seems like the pull syntax gets you a lot of the way there, but using rules, using kind of the more complex data log, I feel like you can get more robust data out, but then I feel like the structure of the data then needs to be processed again to get it into the shape. So just in general, like, do you see that you're kind of reaching for one tool generally over the other?
I don't have any experience with Datomic really, and very little with Crux. So
yeah, unfortunately, I'm the same way. I don't quite have a sense for what might be better or not.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, even last time we were doing subqueries where we were, I think we have it here. And if I can remember correctly,
I think we came up with a subquery, but I don't think it was the,
yeah, here it is. This is where we wanted to do the name of the oldest person with 2 queries. So we basically ran one query and then used it as like an external data source for the bigger query. And then we did the same thing, but instead of the query happening out here, basically having 2 queries happen, this is only one query where there's a subquery. And we talked about what might be the performance considerations, but we didn't really know. And I mean, of course, the data we're talking about is so small, it's hard to even tell.
Right.
But the other thing, Nate, that we talked about was that if there were 2 queries, then there's possibility of like a race condition, and with the subquery, it
a
was
consistency
all in
problem.
one shot. Yeah.
Right. So this query, you're only querying on one version of the database. This one, you could be querying on 2 different versions of the database, like 2 different snapshots essentially, which might be consistent or they might not. You don't know. So I think subqueries is probably the right way to go. And I think this is interesting because it's like we were talking about this queue here. It's like this is not the same queue as this out here. This is like the macro detects that and makes it into a real queue function or something like that. It's not, because this is not taking a quoted form. It's taking just a raw data structure. Anyway.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah, that queue is special.
It looks like this queue, but it's it's specialer. All right, so are we ready to move on to rules?
Oh, there was one other thing that reminded me when you were showing this, is that in my usage, I came across this other thing that you might think that you could put in like a function call in the query, but the query is EDN, is Eden only. So it can't really take a function call.
So this thing here is, it's quoted, so it's just data. It's inert.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, irrespective of, in spite of that subquery where there is like what it looks like a call, with Q.
Well, and here you have like, here inside the query, there's this min date. That looks like a function call too.
Yeah, yeah.
But it's not.
Right.
This is a special name that Crux knows
it's
about.
Sort of syntax in some sense.
Right. It's an aggregate. I think you can make your own aggregates.
Yes, through multi-functions, I believe.
These are already available. Yeah. Yeah, it's tempting to try to just use function calls in there. I mean, like here it looks even more like these are the is this where we're filtering? The predicates, yeah.
Looks like you do have some user-defined functions that you can define in there, though. Like I saw user/age, so there must be a way to register functions that can be called somehow.
Yeah, yeah. So you can. Yeah, there you go. I mean, it looks an awful lot like a function.
So I wonder if you were to construct this as data, what that would be a list, I presume?
This is the list?
Yeah. I'm asking.
Oh. Yeah. Yeah, I would assume so.
Yeah.
You run this one. Oh, I guess I need to evaluate the age function first. Clause refers to an unknown variable user/age.
Sorry, that was another thing. That's another, I think it is what I'm thinking about. There was a note, and I don't know the answer to this, but there's a note in the Crux data documentation, which says that if you're using these user-defined functions in a development environment, and when you change this, the thing that's red right now, that cell that's got a red background, when that queue is done, it's going to take this and it's going to take that data structure and then compile it. So it's whatever was bound at user age, and then it caches that. So if you change user age afterwards, that cache is not going to be updated.
Really?
Yeah, so that was a big, that caused me a fair amount of trouble.
Is there a way to invalidate the cache? Or is it just
I don't know how to do that. It would a good way other than just change the name of the function, which is what I did.
Like age 2?
Yeah, right. Yes.
So if I run this
first, no.
And then I run this. Well, there you go. I forget what we're guessing. Oh, we're finding out Tina Turner's age.
Yeah, yeah.
It's very good to know. Thank you, Duran.
Yeah, it's a good
so
one.
that first one that we ran, so it like recognized that this particular data blob, it had already compiled it, so just used it out of its cache.
Right.
So there's some like optimization it's doing on behind the scenes.
Mm-hmm.
Huh. We'll have to poke them in Slack and say, give us an invalidation function.
Yeah.
I mean, I definitely appreciate the optimization, you know, because then it'll make it really fast to run that. Obviously, because in production, you're going to run that query thousands of times, and you never want it to recalculate it.
A hassle though, as you're trying to tune age, you know, the age function and do development function.
And I think, I'm not really sure, I'm pretty sure I didn't try it, but you know, there's that in normal Clojure, there's that sort of hack of indirecting
Oh, you're
through
like
a var.
this.
Yeah, yeah. And I don't think that works. Again, because this is not really Clojure. I mean, it's not, even though it looks very much like a function call,
Right.
it's
not.
not.
It's living in the process of that.
Yeah.
It's getting rebuilt somehow.
Yeah. Well, no, this is sort of syntax. It's not really.
Right. But I
It's
mean, somehow
convenient
it's
because
getting,
yeah.
But it's like, it's looking up age too, and it's somehow, it's like it's kind of hoisting that up into its own internal namespace in its own cache, right?
Something like that, yeah.
It would be like when you have like a composure routes function, and you define the routes function, it like binds to all your handlers. If you don't have the pound tick on it, it binds to that version of that, because it takes the var and it like gives the value of it, or whatever the right way of saying it in Clojure. And so you have to have the indirection, and
that's crazy.
Binds it.
Yeah.
We didn't run into that last time. We must have religiously
order.
We did it right the first time.
Well, I'm glad I did it wrong the second time. I learned a lot more. You learn a lot more from your failures than your successes.
That's true.
Cool. Any other thoughts and that kind of stuff? Or should we go on to rules? The last section.
Rules.
Okay, so many times over the course of this tutorial, I promise, we have had to write the following 3 lines. So this is getting the title and the cast linked up. Rules are a means of abstraction in Datalog. You can abstract away reusable parts of your queries into rules, giving them meaningful names, and forget about the implementation details. Just like you can with functions in your favorite programming language, which is obviously. Let me just fix this real quick. Let's create a rule for the 3 lines above. First rule is called the head of the rule, where the first symbol is the name of the rule and the rest of the rule is the body. The head of the rule. The first vector, the top of a vector, where the first symbol is the name of the rule. I'm guessing this is the name of the rule.
Yeah, I think they mean the first element in the vector.
Yeah, the first form.
Yeah, the first.
The rest of the rule is called the body. Okay. You can think of the rule as as a kind of function, but remember that this is logic programming. So we can use the same rule to find movie titles given an actor name and find actor names given a movie title.
Sure.
Put another way, we can use both name and title in actor movie name title for input as well as for output. But if we provide values for neither, we'll get all the possible combinations in the database. If we provide values for one or both, it will constrain the result returned by the query as you'd expect. Okay. To use the above rule, you simply write the head of the rule instead of the data patterns. Any variable with values already bound will be input and the rest will be output. So the query to find cast members of some movie, which we had previously had to write this way. Okay. Cast members. Yes. Now becomes I feel like this should be title. Like, does that strike me? Does that strike anyone else as being weird? That should be title?
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Like, I assume this will run because that matches. So here, let me make it title. What's one of the other title? What is one of the other titles in the movie, in the corpus? Avatar. Is that in there?
Yeah.
Oh, Braveheart.
Yeah, but I'm surprised Avatar is not there.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. I mean, that's interesting, but I mean, you still have this thing in there. I wonder if you could put it like somewhere else.
You still have what thing in there?
This big old section here. This is what we would have been in the where.
Right.
And so, like, this is like, you can stop repeating yourself. Well, you have this here. I mean, I'm sure that they'll.
You can only stop repeating yourself inside a query.
Oh, I see. You can't stop repeating yourself across queries. I want to stop repeating myself forever.
Yeah.
You can write. Huh?
That seems a little strange.
I think the next session is talking about that. So.
It can't. I mean, you could theoretically just compose that, right? I mean, it's just a vector anyway, right? If you wanted to just kind of build those out.
Like if we say, if we figure out how to use our keyboard rules.
And if that was quoted, right?
Yeah, and
I mean, if rules was quoted and then rules there was.
What is it, tilde?
Was on, yeah, tilde.
Whoops.
I mean, squiggly. But you also have to quote the rules def, right? Because that has stuff in there that's not.
Like that? Oh, sorry, not that one. That one. Yeah?
But you made it the back quote after the Q.
Where is that again?
Before the find. That, yeah, don't you need a back quote there?
Yeah, otherwise it won't process the.
Yeah, it won't.
Oh,
yeah.
This needs to be a back quote right there. So otherwise it won't inline this. Okay. Oh, did I mess up?
Yeah, I think
I matched delimiter.
Bracket. There's a square bracket after tilde rules that I think is not supposed to be.
Oh
there.
yeah, there's one extra there.
All right. Oh.
There's also an extra square bracket in. Wait, is there? Oh, I think there's a square bracket missing at the end of rules. Yeah, there.
There we go. Yeah. Okay. It just moved. Didn't match the expected structure.
You could try maybe. No, yeah, no.
I don't know. It looks like it's what it's supposed to be. I mean,
oh, I think the backtick is namespacing all of the symbols, which you probably don't. So.
Oh man.
I mean, why don't you remove the backtick and just put a normal tick in front of like the vectors for find and where.
Yeah.
Oh, I see. Go like
Get rid of the find backtick and just
and this one.
Quote the stuff that matters. Yeah.
And take this one off. There you go. That looks better. Hey. Is that right?
Yep.
Yeah.
That
Okay. That's
good.
good. It was just expanded extra.
Mm.
Okay. Hey, look at us. We're reusing it. Okay. Success. All right. So you can write any number of rules, collect them in a vector, and pass them to the query engine by the rules key by using the rules key as above.
Yeah, we could have also like associate rules onto the the quoted map. That probably would have worked too.
Yeah.
What do you mean? I think I know what you mean, but I would like to
make
an example.
If you want to put the tick instead of like having to tick every you have find space tick name and then where space tick name or whatever. So you can put the tick back up at the front.
Okay.
And
take
then
it off here.
Yeah, remove them there, and then remove rules entirely from this map, and then just associate around the whole thing. Yeah, colon rules. Associate that entire.
Oh, look at that.
Yeah, there you go. Oh, nice.
I figured out. I remember the slurp or the barf or whatever. Slurp, I think, is what I want. So this is then rules here.
No, not there.
No, not there.
Not there. Outside of the map. Yeah.
All right, let's try that.
Looks like it. Is it still running? Yellow dot?
Oh, yeah.
Orange dot?
It's still going.
You broke Nextjournal. You crashed their servers.
Let me make sure it's my not my system here. It might be my connection. Here, hold on. I've had problems with DNS.
It's doing something.
Okay, where are we here? I think I need to boot up the whole thing again because I reloaded. Please hold. Your meetup is very important to us. Yeah, let me go back up to the top. All right, almost there. Insert random joke about the Clojure runtime startup time.
How many times do you restart the REPL a day? I'm embarrassed how many times I restart. The cool kids never restart, right, for months?
Apparently, I'm not a cool kid. I restart, not a lot, but Probably in the tens of times a day.
This is a Nextjournal issue.
Really depends.
It's kind of locking up on mine too.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Maybe they're like, the meetup's running. Is anyone else having issues with running Clojure?
I did some simple
Add to the fire.
Let's all try to run again and again. Just man, I never had it take this long.
Yeah, I'm up to 35 seconds too, so something's definitely.
Try again, reload. Really is quite a feat of engineering that they've with it, the whole thing even works, you know, like the ability to run. I mean, it's not just Clojure. Like I've only ever used Clojure on Nextjournal, but you can do other languages too.
All right, looks like no, this tool blows me away every time I use it.
Yeah, I'm having trouble as well. But it took.
I did execute
it
once.
It took 40 seconds.
It is going. It's starting.
It took you 40 seconds to run?
Yeah.
Did you get it there?
Yeah, it's starting to. It's executing now.
Oh, okay.
You're probably gonna kick in too. It's taken 100. Yeah, it's done. It's all done now. 102 seconds.
Well, I'm at like 70 seconds. So somebody else want to take over? You just gotta shift enter and.
Can I ask a question while we wait? Because I'm feeling perplexed on something that maybe I shouldn't be, but I thought quote was return an unevaluated form. And so I'm confused on how a source like worked on the quoted map. Like at what point did that get converted to a real map? I'm misunderstanding something somewhere here.
Yeah, it's a good question. I was.
And when you're muted.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, the quote is the not the backtick quote, but just a regular quote just means treat everything data. It doesn't evaluate symbols. It basically just treats it all as just data. So
I see.
It is a map. There's nothing special about that. It is a map data structure. It's just that everything inside of it is not evaled. It's just so you can associate on it just like any other map because it is a map.
So code in this case, code is data. But if we had a form in there that was, like a symbol or something that may not be evaluated, it would just be treated as like literally the data that it is.
Yeah. So let's see. Maybe I can share my screen real quick and I can. I wonder if I can actually eval that form. This one, where were we? We were doing rules, right? Which one is it? This one, right? Yeah, so this works, right? And then we're just going to recreate. Can you see my screen?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. All right, so I'm going to say def rules I'm gonna change this to just right, and then we want to search this. What's the key command for slurp? Actually, that's not the one. So if I do that, this works too. So, I mean, the other thing to look at here is like, without the queue, if we just take a look at this by itself, I mean, whoops. This is, you know, associating a key onto a map. This is basically just this map with the rules associated onto it.
Hey, Tyson, can you let Nate back in?
Oh, yeah, sorry about that. I wasn't looking at the participants.
Yeah, so we can also do like this. That's fair.
Hey, sorry I had to pop out. I'm some networking issues. I'm back though. What are we doing here?
Tyson just had a question about the quoting stuff. I don't know, did this explain? I'm not sure if I answered your question or not, Tyson.
Yeah, it did. Thank you, Evan.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, because
Cool.
it's
Have
like,
you run that?
It tripped me up too, Tyson. Like what else would it, but if we think about it, right, like what would it be? What else would it be? Would it be as, you know?
Yeah, I mean, it's also kind of informative.
Would it be a string like that? Like that's how we think of it, right? It like, that's what tripped me up.
Yeah. Another way you can think of this also is like, for instance, if I didn't quote it, you could do this too.
Right.
Yeah.
But these aren't symbols, are they?
They are symbols.
Huh.
I mean, like this is a keyword. This is a string. A bare name is a symbol. So if you want to, oh wait, did I just say anything? Oh,
because this is within, this is what's being sent to, this is what's being sent to Crux, to XT. Is it the same?
oh,
is it treated
yeah,
as a?
Sorry, you'd have to do it this way. Sorry, symbol.
Start with the string.
This is kind of like, you would never write it this way, but I mean, essentially the code is doing this for you. It's basically just treating everything as.
That's how you always have to use symbol. You always have to pass in a string.
If you use a symbol, right? Yeah. I mean, if I just say name, this is a symbol, but if I want to,
Edwin, you could also use QUOTE instead of symbol.
Oh yeah, that's true. And then you could just say like name like this.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. Right. So.
Cool.
Another way to think about it is that when you use the quote, you're just doing the read and not the eval and print part of the REPL.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's where I got tripped up, where I was like, I was thinking of it that way as data, and then was wondering like when it was being evalved.
Yeah.
But Soch was doing that part, right? It was just taking the map as data and then associating the rest of the
Correct.
part that we gave it. So yeah, thanks. That cleared it up. Thanks for the detour here.
No worries. Stop sharing. Lost my Zoom.
That's really cool. I guess I never thought, I've quoted things, but I've never thought that, well, if you quote a data structure, it's the data structure and you can just then just associate onto it. That's very cool.
I'm still sharing my screen.
Yeah,
You tried
Edwin,
to-
you're still sharing. If you want to,
My God, I can't even find
you
Zoom.
want to.
Oh, there we go. There we go.
How do we, yeah, they do a really good job of sharing the, oh, there you go. Hiding the share button, the unshare button.
Using- so,
Well, thank you for my network sometimes just stops working. So I've switched now to wireless. So
Need some of that LTE goodness.
yeah, I need to move to Halifax.
Yeah.
Wouldn't be bad. Okay, where were we? We can have multiple rules and you can pass it as the rules key. So you can use the data patterns, predicates, transformation functions, and calls to other rules in the body of a rule. Rules can also be used as another tool to write logical OR queries, as the same rule name can be used several times.
This is where your mind starts to bend, right?
So this is the same rule name. And they're associated via either the cast or the director. Oh, in one of our previous meetups, we had can we just get all the people associated with a movie, whether they were in it or they directed it.
wait, are these rule definitions or rule applications? I think that one's rule definitions.
This is the definitions, yeah.
Yeah.
Subsequent definitions will only be used if the ones preceding it aren't satisfied.
Oh, okay, because they're two rules with the same name.
If the preceding ones aren't satisfied. Oh, I see. Like if you only specify a movie and don't specify person, then it'll keep going and do other ones. But if you do both person and movie, then it'll just use the first one. Although this specifies both of them. Oh, but it doesn't specify as a literal, it specifies it just with a bound.
Subsequent rule definitions will. So I wonder if this is different from Datomic's implementation of Datalog, because I was pretty sure that you can have multiple paths through the rules, right? Even if even if they all match. It's not like it's the way this is written. Am I understanding this correctly? Like it'll basically it'll stop continuing execution to look for additional matches as soon as one rule matches.
If that's the case, then how would this be an OR?
Yeah.
Subsequent rule definitions will only be used if the ones preceding it aren't satisfied.
I believe that's the way order works, right? It will actually returns the first value that it finds.
Aren't satisfied. What does satisfied mean? Does it mean that they're, because this one, because associated with person, we're binding P and M.
So if person, if it finds a person as a value for the movie cast attribute, then it will return that value. If not, then we'll advance on to the movie director.
Oh, I see. If you give it a person in a movie and this doesn't return anything, like it doesn't actually match anything, then it goes on to the next one. So it's like an order. It's a precedence order then.
Yeah, but if they're but both those clauses can match as well.
Yeah, that's how I always thought the.
You mean that like if
that's
someone was in the movie they were directing? Like what was the movie we found last time?
The recursive calls is through these multiple paths through the rules, right? With the same name, like. So what does this query give us right now? And maybe the query will answer what it's doing.
So this gives us all the actors and the director that were in the Terminator.
Yeah, so it is doing everything. It is running through all these rules. Then.
It is going, so it finds movie cast for Michael and then movie cast for Arnold Schwarzenegger, but movie cast is not satisfied for James Cameron, so it drops to this one and does movie director, which does match. And return something.
But it is giving, I mean, it is running through and it's basically giving you an exhaustive match on both of those rules.
On both branches. Yeah.
So it's not like it's dropping, you know, the way this is written, that kind of made it sound like it's gonna only trim and give you when, yeah, I guess it does make sense the way it's written. So it's like each cycle. It doesn't mean that it doesn't mean that all of them have to match.
Yeah, I was confused too, but yeah, you're right.
Because person is open, right? Person's not defined. So we're getting matches on person that aren't movie cast, right? They don't satisfy the movie cast, so it advances on for James Cameron to that second clause.
I actually think it's taking, because you know, person, and this is where it can take does it take the results of one of the passes and then that also becomes a logical binding to the other route through the rule set? That's how you start to get recursive results, right?
We know of
it's like
one
pass, huh?
Oh, I'm sorry.
No.
Go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off there.
No, not at all. But that was I think that's how you can, you know, you've probably seen the other queries where it's, you know, AB and then, you know, AB again, but in the reverse order. And then that's how you get friends of friends. So that's how I understand. But you know, I'm not certain if that's what's happening.
I don't know that we would find, be able to work a query that really explains it with this query I've shown, but we're not defining person, right? A person is just a variable in our logic query.
Right.
But if we were to define a person who wasn't the movie cast, but was a movie director, in that case, it would slip through the first one and it would be returned by that second rule with movie director. But
well, yeah, like the second, I basically I switched it around so that we specify the person and not the movie title.
Oh.
And I don't know if Mel Gibson was the director of Braveheart. Was he director of Braveheart?
Yeah, he was.
I mean, obviously starred in it. We figured out last time, I think, that Mel Gibson was the one. Mel Gibson is the one that's in two, like he's a director and a star in a movie. And I don't know if it's Braveheart, but
I think he did Braveheart, yeah.
We had a query up above that figured that out, but yeah.
So this is so Tyson, can you repeat what you were saying as far as like the path through the rules?
I will try. I'm trying to make my way through this. So I think because we hadn't defined person was variable. The person query that we were running for Terminator, right? And so it was finding Arnold Schwarzenegger found it in the first clause, which was the movie cast. And so it returned that value. But as it was going through with James Cameron wasn't a cast member, right? So then it advanced to the next clause and returned him as the movie director. It washes out, we just get the results of all of these folks because it's basically an order, right? And we get all of them for that movie. So then Nate replace that out with the movie. No, wait, with the person.
What's that?
I think it worked in that case too. But I don't know if did that help?
Yeah, I think I'm curious to know specifically if the first pass through, does that set then also work its way through and match on stuff and bind on stuff? You know, is that how you go
influences the next one?
Yeah, well, it kind of influences like each, you know, because again, it's like if everything has to bind, right? So like person, that first pass through the set, does that then get applied to the second rule pass? Like the stuff that comes out of there, does that have to then bind, or is there like what do you think the path through and the buildup of each set? In this case, right, we have James Cameron. We come through. What are we doing? We do movie, and then cast. So that doesn't match, right?
Right.
Movies come up and you have all the movies, but nothing is matching on James Cameron, right? So empty, right? First pass. Is that correct? Then we move to the second rule and that matches, right? Now that set that comes out, we have movies, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when we now does that then go, is that where it ends? Because the results that have come out are just the movies that he's did he direct Aliens? I thought that was Ridley Scott. Oh, that's the remake, right? I guess not. Yeah, Terminator 2, Judgment Day, Terminator, definitely James Cameron. All right, so this is, and you're just getting, what are you getting on this? You're just getting name?
The movie name, yeah.
So I wonder if, yeah.
The way I'm thinking about it is that, like, you know, I'm just trying to say what's in my head, but I'm doing the same thing as you, trying to figure out the logic behind this. But like when it tries to evaluate each of the things in the where clause, it hits the rule associated with, and it tries to bind it, like you're saying. It uses the first clause to bind it, and if it doesn't bind to anything, then it sees if there's another rule definition with the same name and tries to bind that instead. And if that one binds, then it basically replaces the associated with rule with the rule that bound. So now that becomes like movie director, person, and then the rest of the where clause gets bound up together with that.
I see.
So when it's trying to resolve this, it resolves the whole thing with this in the place and sees if it gets data, and it does this one in that place and sees if it gets data, and just as the set union probably, or intersection or union.
Yeah. The way I'm looking at it, I'm not sure it's the right way, but supposing you had only one definition of the associated with, where it's got the movie cast and the movie director, right? So the two clauses, but only one definition. That would be like an and here it's like an or. So that's
right.
Yeah, Nate, you
sort of a different way of thinking about the same thing.
But it would be everything in that first rule vector.
Yeah.
I think that's what you're saying.
Which one again? This one here?
Yeah, so look at the first rule. So that's the second part of this first rule. So we've got, if you go to the rules clause, and then we've got the opening vector, and then inside of that, there's another vector. And that holds associated with and the line. Yeah, there you go.
Right.
Can you guys, sorry, Tyson.
Yeah. I think that's the answer to your question, Aram. It's like, as it's stepping through these rules, it will bind on that first complete vector associated with person, movie, and the line that's highlighted right now. If it finds something, it returns else, it steps forward to the next.
I see.
Is that right?
So you would have, so this is an, like every rule is an or. Every rule body block is an or. Is that
I don't think it's an or. If
they have the same
name, yeah.
The same,
right.
If
they have the same head, right? The same kind of signature. But if there was a situation here where the second, I don't know how we do that, but if the second rule, same signature, also had results, we should not get any results from that second rule, correct?
Yeah, I think so. That's what they were, the sentence above said that.
So order here is critical. That doesn't seem right. That order would matter. Because everything here, I was understanding that it's declarative.
It would do both, right? It would do both without being having a precedent. But this says,
it's in
subsequent rule definitions are only used if the preceding ones aren't satisfied.
Right. I think what you're looking for is maybe a union, which is not quite the same thing as the or here. This is not really doing a union. It's just doing an or.
You can write logical core. Maybe it's
yeah. So it's an or. If the same signature, it is an or. Got it. Okay.
I guess you could write another rule if you wanted to and this, right? You could put those into a single rule that would.
Well, here, let's go.
I think I was going to say, I think if you scroll down, you'll see there's a much more, even though it's more elaborate, it has the recursive call. If you keep going, you'll see friends of friends.
Yeah, this is given the fact that rules can contain other rules. What would happen if a rule called itself? Interesting things, it turns out, but let's find out in the exercises.
Yeah, there's a good example.
So I want to see what movies Mel Gibson was the cast in. Oh, I think I got too many. Maybe not. No, I got. Oh, I don't think I did that right.
I think you have to rename P to person.
Yes, thank you. And this is movie. So there's where he was the cast. And then here's where he is the director. Braveheart. So then this is the union of those two, right? There was, what was this one? The 3 Lethal Weapons, the 3 Mad Maxes, and Braveheart. And then this is just Braveheart.
Yeah, and that's just Braveheart.
So this one where he's the cast, and then this one where he's the director is just Braveheart.
Right.
So then this one, I mean, those are overlapping sets, so it's not as helpful. It'd be better if he was just a director in some movies and just an actor in other movies that you would see. But I don't know if there's any people that in our data set that satisfy that. Braveheart.
Yeah.
I don't know if that helps either. I was trying to see if I could find both distinct sets and then see if they're merged, which is true.
Right.
But
right.
it's just one is a superset of the other. All right. So you were saying, Aram, we can look at the exercise. Oh, where we do a recursive one?
There's one more a little bit. Yeah, I don't know if you want to try to do it. Yeah, not jump to the solution.
Yes, let's try to do it. So here, let's do the first one. Write a rule, movie year, where the title is the title of some movie and year is the movie's release year.
So write a rule where title is the title of some movie and year is the movie's release year. Okay. So
Like movie one title, I guess. Is it movie name or movie title? I guess
movie
title.
Yeah, it's title.
And the next one would be movie year.
Year, like that.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's a good year. Cool.
We're trying to, yeah.
There was only one.
I guess so. Does anybody have a different year that might have more than one movie?
Right.
Problem is, if you look at the data, it's like the movies are like the year and it's like some ID. 85. Let's see if we're lucky. Roll the dice. Hey, there we go.
Here. All right.
Okay. I think we win. Thank you, Evan.
Yeah.
Okay. Nice. 2 people are friends if they work together in a movie. Write a rule, friends, where P1 and P2 are person entities. Try a few different name inputs to make sure you got it right. There might be some edge cases in there. Sure, I bet there is.
So P1, P2.
If they work together in a movie.
So they're both cast, I guess. So you can do, I guess, same thing, movie, movie cast, I guess. P1 is P1 going to be a name, or is it going to be a person object?
P1 like it's going to be a person, right? Yeah, an entity.
Oh, okay, yeah, so that's fine. And then same thing, movie cast P2.
And then maybe another.
Let's run that. Let's see what we get so far.
I think do we need to pass a?
Oh, we need friends still.
Who are we gonna do? Oh, I think I might have to put this in a. Do I have to put this in a list? Maybe that's okay. I forget the parameterized queries one.
No, I think that's fine.
No, I think that's it. It probably would have barked at you, right? If it didn't.
No, I think what you've got is correct, I think.
No, that can't be right. It can't be that easy. I'm always suspicious.
No, I think there's more than that, because I think you need another friends clause.
Another one like this?
Yeah, where you have some directors.
So
like because this is only doing the cast, right? And says friends are those who are work together.
Two people are friends if they have worked together in a movie.
So if the P1 is the director, and P2 is the cast, right?
Right.
And then you also have.
Right. And you have cast and cast. You have cast and cast. You have friends and cast.
Where P2 is the director and P1 is the cast.
Yeah. And we don't need another one, I don't think, right?
Well, if they're both directors. Oh, I guess you're right.
Danny Glover and Mel Gibson. All right, they're showing up. Gary Busey and.
It'd be cool to know which of these ones was the one that matched. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like to have a literal, be like,
Could you throw in the actual movie title? And just to see what.
So we can say.
Yeah, in the find output, you could maybe. Well, I don't know.
And then have title up here. And then title up here. And then title up here.
And you need title
I need to
the other two.
Yeah. Typing lots of titles here.
Maybe you should pass a movie into the friends role rather than title.
Pass a movie into the friends role instead of title.
Yeah, because we were already using movie, so that'll just be.
Is that right?
I feel like we got a lot more. Oh, right,
Tina
because
Turner.
it's the unique on the tuple. So if he worked with the same person, like he worked with Danny Glover,
right,
on both of the lethal weapons.
And he worked with himself on Lethal Weapon too. No, I guess he's a friend of.
He worked with himself. He's a friend of himself. There's an existential joke there somewhere. What were you saying, Edwin? Pass.
No. What you did is good.
So is there a way to reuse? There's with all this duplication of movie title, of is there some other rule that could be written to pull that data out?
This is the same in all of them.
Yeah. Maybe there's not. I just curious what.
Well, you could make a rule out of that, maybe, but I don't know if it, I mean, won't save too much
You're
typing,
replacing,
but you could try.
you're replacing one line with a different line.
Yeah.
With a different rule. Yeah. So
Now,
this does this go all the way, this goes all the way down this is just one step, like one level of hierarchy? How does this, what if you can you like run through how you see this rule iterating? Can you did Edwin, you did a good job at running through. What do you think's happening here?
Well, this one's not recursive, I don't think. It's just
oh yeah, sorry, I was looking at the solution. There is a recursive way to do this, but
should we look at the answer?
But even this, yeah, just even before we get to the recursive, like how do you see this flowing through?
I mean, so like friends, I think it's kind of the same thing that happened before, right? So we're taking friends, we're replacing friends with the body of the first rule and trying to match. And if it finds anything, it moves on. I mean, if it finds anything, it returns the results. If it doesn't find anything, it replaces friends with the body of the second rule, and so on and so forth. So like specifically here, like for instance, the first one is saying P1 is the name that we're specifying, right? So Mel Gibson, P1 is Mel Gibson. So if Mel Gibson was a cast member, what is another cast member with Mel Gibson in a movie? And what's the title of that movie? And so, first one, I guess, is Joanne Samuel. Presumably that's a cast match. And then for, I don't know, George Miller, is he a director? Yeah, I think so. So that's probably a match on the second one.
Yeah, the George Miller's the director.
Yeah.
I think we can go up here and say director George Miller. He was the director of, yeah, all three Mad Maxes. So that's what these were the results, are because of the director, the cast to director link. So what I'm wondering about the precedence rules is, so say you're going through and matching these, and you find someone who their friend, there's a result for the cast to cast friends, but there was the different result for the cast to director one. Does that mean that the director cast one is ignored because it satisfied this first one? Is that what satisfied means?
I think so.
Because in that case, I feel like we're missing people. We're missing relationships then, because someone could have been like, you're friends with you're friends with all the cast and the director. Although we have you're friends with the cast and you're friends with the director showing up here.
Well, not necessarily, because like if you have Joe and Jim, right? They can either be friends because they were both cast members, or they can be friends because one was a director and one was a cast member. But ultimately, you just want to figure out if they're friends. So.
Interesting. I feel like I need to run up against this in a real production data set before I really can fully understand. Like, we got a result and it looks right, but I feel like if Stephen was here, he would be like, oh, here's the detail. All right.
There's the one with the recursive call.
Whoa, look at that.
Oh, that's cool.
So let's do Mel Gibson again. Gibson.
So this is kind of like, instead of repeating the cast director, director cast twice, you're just calling the friends relation
Twice.
Twice, yeah.
In opposite order. This is an interesting bit here.
Yeah, you can't be friend with yourself.
I disagree with that. But it's an interesting.
So in that query, we've got P1 and P2, and then we've got question mark P1, question mark P2. Are those just seen as different variables, or is it, what's going on there?
It's a bit of a mind bend because it's a scope thing. Like in this scope, P1 and P2 are the two people. But then when you get passed in, it's like this now because it's like when you call a function. So now this now becomes the value of that other, or the binding of that other one. And this becomes the binding of that one. So in real sense, this is P1 and P2 for each call, or, you know, call.
So that's the difference. If we renamed all those if we removed all the question marks, those would somehow be bound to the where P1, P2?
No.
Different.
It's, you know, it's kind of like calling a function where the name of the variable in the function call and the name of the variable in the binding in the defin are the same name. Like they have the same name and they're bound to the same value because you're calling the function, but it's not the same. Like you can rename. Does that make sense? Is that
Got it. Yeah.
a good analogy?
P1 and P1 without a question mark in this context is being rebound from the results, like that they're completely unbound because there's no question mark in the where clause, right? Because we're not doing that in the other in the above examples. We aren't switching, like we are using, if you scroll up, right? Like
right,
we are
so like
using,
here,
so these are bound, right?
so the question mark here is just, it's like a question mark in the name of a function name. There's no, they're all the same. So like up here,
Okay, these are
so
the
P1
same. So
here,
this is just a convention in the bottom one. It's just for clarity, we're switching it, but it's always been that they've never been bound, correct?
or that they're logic variables, so they're bound to everything.
I mean,
they're
well, logically they're like here. I thought that they are logically somehow bound.
No. So if I like rename this one to person one, I have to rename this one to person one. Right. But this P1 stays the same because it's like
the P1 stays the same.
This scope.
So the rules and the where, they've never actually, their variables are never. They're not bound across the where and the rules.
Right. Only through this is like a function call style of way of binding those together.
And each rule is also isolated, correct?
Yeah. So then we could say they call this Bob and this Bob.
Sure. And Bob here and Bob here, even though the name is different, the signature is the same. Friends, Bob, title, P1, like it's as long as you have the same number of arguments in the head.
That's a good question.
It's considered the same.
I don't know. I don't know if these names have to match. That's a I would hope not. Like I would hope it would just be an arity thing like functions are, but
I'm pretty sure it's an arity thing. I mean, it is a question though, like if they have different arity, whether like if one of the friends rules had like 2 arguments and the other ones had 3, I mean, would the 2 argument one I mean, would it be an error, or would it just ignore the 2-argument one because you're only
I wonder if it would even run, right? Would it fail? Could you just try, could you roll back and just try to add one more clause in there that doesn't have the same arity?
Yeah, that's good.
Oh, that's,
Yeah,
I messed up.
Rule definitions require same arity.
Oh, it's because
Okay, there
the
we go.
friends.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, that answers that question.
Okay, good to know.
So you can't
But
have the same name. This could be like,
but names don't matter. Sure, as long as the name is different, it's a different rule. So the rule, the head, the name of the head is
the name of the
that
rule.
needs to have the name of the rule that has to have the same arity, but the actual arguments, they can change their name because they're not bound across rules.
Or back to the where clause. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Thanks. That was really helpful to walk through.
That's cool. It's like you have like a new fancy gadget or whatever, and you like turn it over and you're like, oh, there's all these other cool things I can do with it. So I feel like there's like, oh, there's all these cool things I can do with rules. Like, I don't know.
Totally. That's
how
where
to
I'm
use them without cutting my fingers off, but
yeah. That's why I'm curious. Like the rules feel like you can build whatever, like you can suck out whatever data you need because of the recursive nature. But I'm struggling to see like structure, getting that into the shape that you want after the fact, and like how do these results somehow get coalesced into a usable shape, especially if there's like hierarchical data.
Why does our result differ from the solution?
That's a good question. I noticed that
we're missing the recursive call at the bottom.
Well, yeah, but
it's not,
why is that the case?
I mean, it's just
like
another way of writing the same thing, actually. We had one where cast and director were switched between P1 and P2, and they're just doing that same thing.
But we're getting different results, so.
Well, if we take out the title, I think we should get the same results.
I
think we got like quite a bit fewer.
Yeah,
like 13 friends.
No, but there's different person. I think that wait, is it?
Mel Gibson. Yeah, the same person.
Same person. Oh, okay, but it's also inverting the first one too, right? Oh, and what happened here?
Oh,
there's 50 items.
Yeah, that's what.
There's 50 friends. I'll run it again. Mel Gibson. Certified 50 friends.
See that
including himself.
Think about for a second that recursive call. So if it goes through all the rules, if it gets to the third rule, that rule then is inverting the arguments and then recalling the whole stack. Is that right?
Oh, actually, okay. I thought it's calling it twice.
No, it's not.
No, this is the definition.
That's the definition, and then that's the call.
Oh, okay, all right. No, I misunderstood. You're right. Yep.
So is that what it's doing? So it gets through.
So
there's no match on that. It flips the people, and then it goes through the entire stack again. Correct? Is this how it's going to traverse down the tree each time? Like it's going to kind of get deeper down the. Because you're getting all people, all movies, all friends. Like, is it? It's giving us everything across the entire database, right? It's not like it's starting with that one person and then it's not just their friends, right? But it's friends of friends.
Well, but it shouldn't be friends of friends. That's not what
it's everybody that's worked on movies together, right?
is it friends of friends, or is it reversing these relationships of like cast and director?
Well, they're assuming if they've worked on a movie together, that's why we put in the director and the cast, right?
Right.
But what I'm wondering is, like, do you basically go down, you're inserting like if we take it from the top, right?
Right.
We start with what are we feeding in here? We feed in P1, title, P2. So we're getting person's name from the name that's being passed in, right, from the in. And then we're matching, so let's say we get Braveheart, right? We got Mel Gibson, we get Braveheart. And then we're also matching on, right then and there, we're matching a friend, right? Because those logical bindings have to all like, I wonder at that point what's getting fed into P2. Like if you flipped the order of the friends, the friends call P1, P2, and the P2 person / name friend, if you flip those, doesn't matter, right? So those two people are coming in. So as it goes down, sorry, not in this one, but in the one that has the recursive call, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you've gone down and you haven't matched on anything, what happens at that last line when friends get called? Now it's being, say we had Mel Gibson and Tina Turner on Mad Max, right?
Right.
Well, they would match on the first movie. So I don't know what other, but somehow if we got to the very bottom, we would now flip those, and then we would call, and all the rules would run from the top, correct?
Yeah.
We would just kind of start at the top again and start running down again, right?
I think the difference is when we hit that last one, it's going to flip the position of P1 and P2. And so
right.
In that second one, movie cast, the first one, cast, I don't know that it makes much
difference. It's not going to really do much, right? Yeah, but cast director
flips that relationship.
But we have that flip here.
Yeah, we have that.
We have the flip here.
Yeah.
Director, cast.
No, but why are we getting different results?
Why are we getting so many fewer results?
But think about it. When we go through the first one, let's put in values. If P1 is Mel Gibson, mm-hmm. and P2 is who's the who was the director on one
George
of those
Miller.
movies? George Miller. Gotcha. Okay, so if we come to Mel Gibson, George Miller, let's flip those. Say we have Mel Gibson, George Miller. That's going to fail that second one, right? Director Mel Gibson, no. Cast George Miller, no. Correct. But now if we go down, not in this one, sorry, in the recursive one.
Oh.
If we go down, we flip that last call is going to now flip those two names, recall the whole stack. And now when you come back down the line, when you hit the second rule, you are going to have Mel Gibson, George Miller. Those are going to now match, correct?
Yeah, that'll match in here.
Right, that'd match in here. So that's how it would make it, back up. Now, if it would exit at that point, right? It wouldn't continue down. So it's like really, it's flipping those.
Yeah, no, I understand. I understand it flipping it around so that it matches the opposite way. But I feel like I think there are 50 people total. I think we're matching everyone because I think this is doing friends of friends. I think it's recursing. It flips, and then if it matches if it doesn't match, then it flips them back. I feel like this feels like too many friends. Like what's the question? If they have worked together in a movie.
Right. If two people have worked together in a movie. Well, I mean, yeah. I don't know. I mean,
Wait, can we go down, Nate, see, is this the 50, where we're getting 50?
This is the 50. What's that again?
Yeah, I just wanted to check that this was Mel Gibson.
But okay, but
yeah.
Can we take one person who is in the set of 50 who is not in our set?
Okay.
And then try to figure that out.
Let's see. Who's it? Nick Stahl. Okay, so should we run these with Nick Stahl instead?
No, I'm just trying to see if we, okay.
yeah,
so
let's try it.
Can we figure out what?
Yeah, like figure out how he would have been a friend.
Yeah.
Is that what you mean?
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
I see.
Yeah, and or.
Okay, so like let's just do a couple queries then. So let's do what movies was Nick Stahl in, and what movies was Mel Gibson in?
Yeah.
And then they should be an overlap, right?
Right.
Where's that associated with? Here we go. That's probably what we want. Hey. So these are the movies that Mel Gibson was associated with. And these are the movies that Nick Stahl was associated with. I guess we'll just remember.
Yeah.
Braveheart, the Mad Maxes, and the Lethal Weapons. Okay, so he was in Terminator.
So how
they didn't work on the same movie.
Yeah. So
let's pick someone from up here,
yeah.
like Gary Busey.
Well, it doesn't. Yeah.
So Gary Busey.
So that already answers it. This is 100%. This here is friends of friends. I mean, it's not just one. It's pulling everybody that's worked on.
So Gary Busey and Mel Gibson worked together on Lethal Weapon. That's why they're friends. So I think this is, yeah.
The one we wrote is just one level. It's literally everybody that's worked with Mel Gibson.
Right.
Is that correct?
But that is
two
what
people.
Whereas
that's what the problem is.
Two people are no, but it's saying two people are friends if they've worked together. Not saying one person. What are the friends that this person has? Just saying two people are friends if they've worked together. Write a rule where P1, P2 are person entities. Try a few different name inputs to make sure you got it right. There might be some edge cases here. So does this mean that we should only get the set that we're getting? Is the explanation of the other one even, yeah.
Yeah,
and the solution?
I think this makes more sense. It's just the one level of friends. Like I understand. I mean, because if you do this one, you're gonna find everyone because of Kevin Bacon.
But is that what's happening? Is that what it's doing though? Because that's what I'm curious. Like how many people do we have in the entire database? Do we know how many?
50.
There's 50. So this is pulling everybody.
Yeah. If I do.
Person name, person friend.
I guess we just take this out.
We can try to flex our account, our aggregator.
I think I need to take one more of these out. Oh, right. 50.
Okay. So yeah, are they just trying to confuse us, or are they trying to make a point that everybody's connected?
No, but it's not even friends of friends, because that friends P1, P2, and the definition being friends P2, P1, the way I would read it, it says that P1 and P2 are friends if P2 and P1 are friends.
P1 and P2 are friends if P2 and P1 are friends. Yeah, but it's not, because that is going to run it through the rules again, and then you're going to get the director cast relationship again, potentially matching. Right? Like, I wonder if that rule. So just to be clear, are we certain that a result of a rule, it doesn't somehow get, sorry, I know my camera froze in a nice little smiling position.
Very nice.
My new profile picture. So, okay, if you run a rule, when the result of a rule, that doesn't somehow make it up back to the where clause, get rebound, and then also rerun through the rules, right? Like, there's no, you know what I think where I struggle the most is understanding the cutoff point of where a rule completes and no longer affects the future result set.
Right. Stops the recursion. Yeah, I think.
Well, it stops the recursion and stops the binding, because the logical bindings in the where, I guess in my mind, like, where does that end? Like, when the rules are running, do all of those bindings somehow get looped over again somehow? And again, if you have, like, everything has to logically bind, right? There has to be, so like the distinction between the where and the rules, that's where I think I'm getting tripped up.
Yeah. I think also, like, oh, sorry, go ahead.
I'm just saying, I'm to add to that, confused, because we do provide Mel Gibson as a parameter, right? And Mel Gibson is getting bound in to name. So P1 person name. I don't know how we could be getting friends of friends. I mean, this is giving us back instead of 50. Something is really wrong here, right?
Yes. I think that's what tripped me up too, is I feel like it's recursing and getting friends of friends, but I don't know how it's getting friends of friends. Like, obviously it's getting all 50 results. So I don't think it's the correct answer, but I don't know where it's stepping into the wrong answer. Like, because I don't understand the recursion. Like, this, to me, this is equivalent to what we wrote, but obviously it's not. So there's some place I'm missing.
Difference, I think, is that not equals P1, P2, which we don't have.
Right. Which is what you said, Edwin, right? Like, that's just you can't be friends with yourself.
Yeah, but this would never hit, because you're never going to be.
If you commented on it's the same result.
I mean, in the second clause, I think that should also be in the cast director relationship clause.
Yeah, let's try that.
So Mel Gibson, that's why we're getting him back for himself. But I think there might be mistakes in here, because we saw that there was a mistake in one of the other queries where it had terminator instead of like a symbol.
No, it's got everyone again.
You have the other. Are you able to run a specific? You're able to eval a specific form?
Yeah, on Mac, if you do Alt Shift Enter, and watch if I hold down Alt, it see how it highlights in blue.
Nice.
So if I hold down Alt here, it just does it, like, it's like it tells you what it's going to evaluate if you hit Enter.
I see.
So if you hold down Alt, and then if you hit Shift, it toggles to the whole thing.
Very cool. Guys, unfortunately, I gotta run. I didn't realize it was 8:30.
Oh yeah.
But I think that's the Yeah, that's the conclusion. That's the last exercise. So maybe we can get some clarity from the Juxt people.
Yeah. Yeah.
When they're done with all the renames.
To be continued. Hopefully by next month I'll have a lot more Datalog. Well, I'll have a lot more Datalog experience, and we can go like, oh, these are obvious now.
Oh, that'd be wonderful. Yeah, I think we should maybe next time we can continue the go to the planet tutorial. I think that would be fun too. But it's nice to finish this tutorial and be done with it.
Yeah, the only thing, the planet tutorials that I tried to go through them for today, but they don't have exercises as far as I could tell.
It was sorry guys, I hate to interrupt. I'm gonna jump off. Okay. Really good seeing everybody. Okay. Thank you so much.
Bye.
All right, see you guys soon.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Well, thanks you all. Rules have been kind of baffling to me a few times as I tried to jump into the Datalog. So that was really enlightening.
Very cool.
Yeah, it was fun. It was good to see everyone.
Likewise.
All right.
Thank you, Nate.
So long.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Have a great month.
Yeah.
Bye.